Chapter 64. Scourge of Women. The visitor had sword brows and starry eyes, long hair draped over his shoulders, and his handsome face was full of rigidity. He carried a long black sword on his back and stepped in, his figure very ethereal. Surprisingly, above this person's shoulders squatted a golden-furred monkey, which was looking around, scratching its ears and occasionally squeaking, which was truly astonishing. To such an extent, this person's identity was self-evident. It was Kang Qian, who had left Heavy Iron City. What a strange monkey. It feels like the cultivation is not weak. Could it be a legendary spirit beast? This monkey is covered in golden hair. Could it be the legendary Golden Silk Monkey clan? Rumor has it that golden silk monkeys have extraordinary talent. This person has such a spirit monkey. His origin is not trivial. And I'm afraid that his own strength is not simple. It seems that the water in this Fengdu city is getting deeper and deeper. Isn't that right? Recently rumored that the news of the corpse catching sect Ray, emerging from the cultivation world, has already caused the Great Tang country's cultivation world to shake. It is said that quite a number of masters are on their way, especially the young generation of the popular figures. The Great Tang 7 warriors have all come one by one. Rumor has it that 10,000 years ago, the corpse-catching sect dug up people's ancestral graves, causing such anger in the heavens that it was eventually exterminated by the righteous and the devil. Now that it has resurfaced, I'm afraid that it'll cause a lot of killing. This Fengdu city is getting more and more chaotic. As Kang Qian entered the city, there were many voices of discussion coming from the passing crowds, and there were even some people pointing at him from afar, secretly speculating about his identity. Fengdu city was extremely lively and noisy. Cultivators could be seen everywhere. All of them were foundation establishment stage cultivators, but most of them were above the 7th level of foundation establishment. The overall strength was more than a few times stronger than Heavy Iron City. It was worthy of being one of the top 10 cities in the Great Tang Kingdom. On top of that, the marketplace within Fengdu City was very huge, with countless cultivation shops, such as all sorts of magic treasure shops, elixir shops, talisman shops, and so on. It was undoubtedly a prosperous cultivation city. Kang Qian circled around the marketplace and purchased some alchemy materials according to Emperor Dan's instructions before preparing to find an inn to stay at. White Moon Residence, the largest inn in Fengdu City. Kang Qian found this inn exiting the workshop market. The Haoyu residence covered an extremely large area, with hundreds of houses and courtyards, enough for thousands of people to live in. After renting a courtyard in the Haoyu residence, Kang Qian followed a small boy to the Haoyu residence's restaurant to prepare for dinner, and in the meantime, probe for some information on the cultivation world. At this moment, the restaurant was already overcrowded, with people talking to each other about the situation in the cultivation world. As soon as Kang Qian entered it, he felt dozens of powerful auras coming at him, and when he looked around, he was surprised to find quite a few experts, among which there were several Jiden stage powerhouses. Is this the cultivation world? There are so many experts. Feeling the atmosphere in the restaurant, Kang Qian had some excitement and thrill in his heart, knowing that he had finally come into contact with the true cultivation world. At that moment, he found an empty table, ordered some drinks and dishes, and secretly sniffed the conversations of the cultivators in the restaurant. These cultivators didn't avoid suspicion and spoke in a voice that was audible to everyone around them, with the occasional person getting involved. From their conversations, Kang Qian learnt quite a bit of news about the cultivation world today. Nowadays, the biggest event in the cultivation world was the Heavenly Dao Sect's Disciple Acceptance ceremony in 2 years' time. This was a great event in the cultivation world of the Great Tang country, and as the time drew nearer, it caused more and more hilarity. Along with this event, one by one, young experts have risen within the Great Tang country, and the deeds of young geniuses who have made their mark on the cultivation world can be seen everywhere. Those who were interested even ranked them and gave them some nicknames. For example, the Imperial Capital 4 Heroes, the Great Tang 7 Heroes. These 11 people are the Great Tang cultivation world is recognized as the peak of the young experts. They are not all dragons in the people. At a young age, they already have comparable to the strength of the older generation of experts to create a lot of miracles. Kang Chon's familiar Jin San Xiao was one of the 4 masters of the Imperial Capital, and he was very famous in the cultivation world. I didn't realize that San Xiao was so famous. Kang Chon sighed quite a bit. That unimpressive 3 fatty. Yet he was so famous in the cultivation world. It was really surprising. Kid, it's easy to be famous in the cultivation world. As long as you defeat a few experts, you'll be famous right away. Why don't you kid go and find that what's her name, the Great Tang 7 Warriors, and have a great battle right now, and you'll be famous right away, Emperor Dan said with a smile. Kang Chon was speechless when he heard this, but there was a powerful battle intent in his eyes. He would meet these people sooner or later. There was no need to rush, for now it was better to consider the matter of the corpse catching sect. From the restaurant in the cultivators between the conversation, Kang Chon also got a lot of information about the corpse catching faction. It is said that not long ago, Fengdu Mountain has a vision. Someone's surprised blood red lights illuminates the whole ghost mountain. There are also heard from the mountain 10,000 ghosts hissing, the sound of ghosts howling. Afterwards, there were experts from the corpse catching sect showing up in Fengdu City, threatening that the corpse catching sect that dominated the cultivation world 10,000 years ago had reappeared in the cultivation world again. During this period, the cultivation world of the Great Tang Kingdom was shaken, and countless experts gathered here. All parties had different purposes, making the entire Fengdu city surging with dark currents, as if a storm was coming. Kang Chon poured himself a drink, while continuing to listen to the news coming from around him. Right at this moment, a woman walked into the restaurant, attracting the attention of everyone. The clouds want to dress up, and the flowers want to look beautiful. The spring breeze brushes the threshold, and the dew is thick. A light laugh came from the restaurant as a beautiful woman walked in. She wore a red dress. Her body was concave and convex, outlining a beautiful arc from her white and flawless face. One could tell that her skin was also this snowy white like grease. It's the warrioress flower thinking wrong. I didn't realize that of the 7 heroes of the Great Tang, she was the first to come to Fengdu City. Rumor has it that the only female warrior among the Great Tang 7 warriors, Flower Thinking Wrong, whose appearance is overwhelming, is a peerless beauty, and today's glimpse really lives up to her name. I wonder if the other 6 warriors will also come one by one. Some people in the restaurant recognized this woman, and a cry of surprise rang out. The person who came was actually the female warrior of the 7 warriors of the Great Tang dynasty, Flower Thinking Wrong. No matter whether it was her beauty or her strength, it made the crowd pay attention to her. Kang Chon also looked curiously. His eyes slightly shrunk. His powerful intuition made him sense the powerful aura coming from Huawanyong. Although this woman's cultivation was only at the 9th level of foundation establishment stage, her strength would definitely not be weaker than Jidan stage. It's actually a spirit monkey, so similar to the legendary golden monkey. While Kang Chon was sizing up Huawanyong, the other party's eyes flashed with a brilliant light, surprisingly following his gaze. And when he saw Xiaojin on his shoulder, he slightly eeped lightly. As the words fell, Huoqianrong lightly moved her lotus steps and slowly walked towards the table where Kang Chon was. In the crowd's astonished gazes, Huoqianrong walked towards Kang Chon's side. A scene that saw the young talents in the restaurant startled, and then they all glared at Kang Chon. Of course, most of these young jokers were Huoqianrong's suitors, and seeing Huoqianrong walking towards Kang Chon could not help but be a little jealous. Who is this brat? Could it be that he knows the lady warrior? Look at the spirit monkey on his shoulder. I'm afraid his origins are not simple. This son has peak strength at the 9th level of foundation establishment at such a young age. I'm afraid that even if he's not as good as the 7 heroes of the Great Tang Dynasty, he's not far behind. The older generation of cultivators in the restaurant were also talking, and the gazes of all the people converged one by one along with Hua Qianlong's pace. Kang Qian was somewhat stunned as he looked at the woman in red, slowly walking in front of him. His heart was puzzled. He didn't seem to know this woman. If others knew that he had this kind of thought, I'm afraid that he would be infuriated to death. Other people can't even think of climbing a little relationship with Flower wanting wrong, and he still dislikes it. This gentleman, would you mind if slave sits down? Flower want to wrong lightly move lotus step, cherry lips lightly move, pretty face. Seems to blowing the bullet that is broken, a pair of slender jade legs, set off the willow-like thin waist. Kang Qian couldn't help but be a little surprised. This woman's appearance is beautiful, is the most beautiful of the women he has seen. Even when the heavy iron city's first beauty, Wang Ting can't compare to this woman. No wonder attracted so many people in the restaurant to pay attention to. Of course, in addition to this, Kang Qian was even more surprised by this woman's cultivation, surprisingly giving him a threatening feeling. This was the first time he had seen an expert of the same age who could fight. Gongzi. Flower thinking wrong stared straight at Kang Qian, her eyebrows lightly frowned. A hint of displeasure appeared in her eyes, and her tone of voice couldn't help but become heavier. Those cultivators in the restaurant who were watching also cursed in a low voice. Toads wanting to eat swan meat. Poor Kang Qian was thus misunderstood by the crowd. Cough, fairy, but there's no harm in sitting down. Kang Qian coughed awkwardly and said in a hurry. The Dan Emperor's loud laughter coming from his mind made him depressed. He was just checking out the other party's cultivation. My slave, Hua Wanyong, the gentleman's cultivation is extraordinary, but he looks very strange. Dare to ask your name? Flower wanting to wrong lightly stroke hair, a pair of hands, 10 fingers slender, as if fine carved jade. A pair of jade arm, plump and not sea meat, dainty and if boneless. This scene looked at the restaurant in the crowd swallowed a mouthful of water. Even Kang Qian also some blush in front of the woman. Although the eyes are clear, the look of innocence, but every move carries a seductive meaning. Let a person unconsciously infatuated. No wonder attracted so many young handsome. My name is Kang Qian. It turns out that Fairy is the female warrior amongst the 7 warriors of the Great Tang Dynasty. It really lives up to its name. Kang Qian silently recited the fixed heart mantra. His mind was instantly as firm as a rock, and his eyes flashed brilliantly. From Emperor Dan, he had learnt that this woman was naturally bewitching and cultivated seductive techniques, which were difficult for ordinary people to resist. Flower thinking Rom's eyes flashed with essence when she saw that Kang Qian easily resisted her seduction. Her heart couldn't help but be surprised. Just now she saw that Kang Qian was frivolous. So she couldn't help but use her gong method to prepare to give him a lesson. She didn't expect to be easily blocked by him, making her feel that the other party was getting more and more unfathomable. If Kang Qian knew her thoughts, he must have secretly sighed that it was hard to guess a woman's mind. The other party took the initiative to strike up a conversation and still blamed others for peeking. It was really helpless. It's just a false name. If Lord Kang Qian is willing, he can obtain it at any time. Flower thinking wrong followed up with a light laugh, but her tone was very firm, clearly agreeing with Kang Qian's strength. Kang Qian smiled undeniably at his words and did not speak. Someone in the restaurant was dissatisfied. A young man in fancy dress came and looked at Kang Qian with disdainful eyes, saying, Fairy Flower's words are not good enough. Although the 7 heroes of the Great Tang Dynasty is a vanity name for a fairy, it is not something that a cat or a dog can just get. Nowadays the brats are also loud and proud. So it's Prince Wu Fei. I heard that you have already broken through the Jidan stage. It's really congratulatory. When Hua Xiangrong saw the visitor, Her eyebrows couldn't help but frown as she said softly, "It's Wu Fei. He's the younger brother of Wu Gang, the fighter warrior of the 7 warriors. His own cultivation is extraordinary. He broke through the Jiden stage early, and it's still a 5-turn Qingdan." Some people in the restaurant exclaimed in shock. The visitor's origins were extraordinary. Kang Chon, however, raised an eyebrow. "The visitor is not good. This person is rushing towards him, viewing his gaze towards Wu Huayong with a color of adoration, obviously also Wu Huayong's suitor. It seems to be jealous. Fairy overpraise. Compared to the fairy, Wumu is still far from it." Wumu invited a few young talents in the elegant room. "I wonder if the fairy can move. They all admire the fairy for a long time," Wu Fei said with a smile, with a reddish color. He just broke through the Jiden stage. It was the time when he was in the springtime. This time, if there was a beautiful woman accompanying him, it would be even more complacent. This, Huo Xiaongrong sniffed, her eyebrows wrinkled up. Some hesitation. She's from the bottom of her heart, do not want to be with these playboys. But their family and Wu family relationship is good. It is not good to refuse.